Hi, I'm Jello from the Feminist Buzzkills Live Pod, the only podcast that helps you navigate the news in this post-pro anti-abortion hellscape. Each week, with co-host Liz Winstead, we dissect all the news from that sketchy intersection of abortion and misogyny with providers and activists working on the ground. The cherry on top is we have amazing comedy guests who help us laugh through the rage. Feminist Buzzkills Live drops Fridays wherever you pod. Listen and subscribe, because when BS is popping, we pop off.
I'm Brian Karam, and I've spent decades covering politics. Now I'm taking you behind the scenes, one interview at a time.
Join us as each week Brian confronts the issues that matter, posing the questions you wish you could ask. No filter, no agenda, just the truth.
We're not here for sound bites. We're here for substance. Join me, Brian Karam, every week as we cut through the noise and get straight to it. This is Just Ask the Question, where curiosity will lead us to the facts.
Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform, and remember, when you want answers, all you have to do is just ask the question.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Sometimes we say we're here to take the ick out of politics. I actually feel like you're putting extra ick in, like between the jello and like the possum recipes.
Putting the ick back in politics might be a good slogan for the show, so thank you for that.
RWB. We came to make a change.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to How to Not Lose Your Shit. I'm LaFonda Cousin, a part-time yoga instructor, self-care advocate, and the chief people officer here at Red Wine and Blue.
And I'm Katie Paris, the founder of Red Wine and Blue.
And Katie, we are back. It is good to be back with you. I feel like we have not been together in a few weeks.
I have missed you.
I have missed you.
I am so glad to be with you. And what a treat of a guest we had today. I can't wait for everyone to hear.
Oh my goodness, it was so fun.
Bennett Rea. The voice, the man, the legend behind Cookin With Congress. If you do not follow Cookin With Congress on Instagram or TikTok, we are here to make your life just a little bit better. Just as a reminder, we joined Allison Gill's podcast network this month, which is why you're hearing ads in these episodes now. But we need your help on something. If you ever hear one that makes you think, whoa, that does not make sense for Red Wine and Blue, please reach out and let us know, and we will take care of it. Before we bring to you the amazing treat of our Cooking with Congress friend, we are trying something new today on the podcast, aren't we, LaFonda?
We are.
So one thing that really helps us not lose our shit is remembering that in the midst of the chaos of this administration, an administration that wants you to think standing up to it isn't even worth it because they're going to steamroll you anyway. The truth is that when we do stand up, we're winning. It's working. We're actually winning all over the country and especially at the local level. So starting today, we are starting a new segment bringing you that good news, positive stories that you might not have heard about to help you not lose your shit. Let's dive in, right? What is our first one? There were a bunch of elections last week and so much good news came out of it.
Yeah. So in Sarasota, Florida, they just voted out their Moms for Liberty school board. If you know anything about Red Wine and Blue, then you probably also know a lot of things about Moms for Liberty. They are infamous for banning books, working with ICE, the Don't Say Gay policies. They are just terrorizing school boards all over the country. And in Sarasota, Florida, they said, absolutely not. We have had enough. They have voted them out of their school board. And 2 teachers, both of them are women, won those seats on the board instead. So that is really, really exciting.
It's so exciting. Listen, we have had a ton of success at the school board level, taking extremists off of these school boards one by one, sometimes 2 by 2 all across the country. But this was really in the belly of the beast. This was really in the heart of Moms for Liberty country. So to have mainstream moms, dads, kids speak up and get our way, standing up for that mainstream American way, standing up for the freedom of parents like you and me to not have our kids dictated what they can learn, like book bans and things like that. They said no to that here, and it is a huge win. All right, so next up, every person I tell about this is so excited. So I'm really excited to share this with our audience. So near Pittsburgh, a candidate for state legislature in a special election flipped his district blue, and he did it by 88 votes. And this district is one that Trump won by 18 points in 2024. So just like a huge surprise, a huge flip, and for it to come down to so few votes is just a really pleasant shocker.
Yeah.
Republican voters outnumber Democrats 2-1 in this district, but Democrats have been making gains in suburban areas just like this one. And so this was really the manifestation of that change. We've got to keep an eye on this district. This race will happen again in November because this was just a special election. But this certainly bodes well, not just for this district, but for districts like it all over the country. 88 votes determined this out of 17,000 votes cast. So it's almost like every vote matters.
Every vote counts, Katie. That's crazy.
I mean, there actually are examples that we see of this every cycle, sometimes coming down just to 1 vote, 100 votes, 8 votes. In a district where 17,000 votes were cast, this is very few votes, but it's not unprecedented. And it's also not unprecedented to see a district swing that went for Trump by double digits. 2026, bring it on.
If that doesn't make you want to get out and make sure that you are voting in November, Pittsburgh, then I don't know.
It's so empowering. It's just like literally we can like get a living room full of friends together and like decide that we're going to talk to everyone we know about an election and flip the whole thing.
Let's do it. All right, Katie, there is news out of your state in Ohio. The state Supreme Court just unanimously dismissed a lawsuit challenging your reproductive rights amendment. So Red, Wine, and Blue fought really, really hard. This was when I first started with Red, Wine, and Blue, I think. Red, Wine, and Blue fought really hard for this constitutional amendment in 2023, and it was voted for by a wide majority, 56 to 43%. There have been a lot of challenges to this amendment in Ohio, but voters have continued to prevail. And so shout out to the Ohio Supreme Court, who dismissed that lawsuit and said, no, thank you.
It's a big deal here. I think people from outside Ohio look at us and they think, oh, that's a red state now. But remember, we did pass triumphantly this reproductive rights constitutional amendment just a few years ago, and we are continuing to have it upheld in our state. And I think it actually represents which way the wind is blowing around here. Ohioans are not happy with Trump. He's underwater here by double digits, y'all. In Ohio, again,
yes.
In districts like that one we just talked about in Pittsburgh are turning against Trump and the whole state of Ohio. Like 2026 is something that we all need to get involved in. It's not going to happen by itself. None of this is going to happen by itself. Okay, there's so much good news, but I'll just mention one more because it is about my hometown. Y'all know that I'm an Ohio girl now, but I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina. And the current mayor there has called for an end to the city's Flock contract. Flock is those AI cameras that have sprouted up all over the country. There's over 100,000 of them in over 6,000 cities all across the country. This is an issue that I've also been fighting in the town where I live now, Shaker Heights, Ohio. So it's really cool to me to see that the place where I grew up is taking on this issue as well. So from Ohio to North Carolina to all across this country, we are saying no to this mass surveillance powered by tech billionaires and AI that is tracking everyone regardless of what you've done. And of course, empowering ICE is exciting to me to see folks all over the country standing up to this kind of mass surveillance.
Yeah, I think people are starting to understand what the Flock cameras are really about.
Yeah,
So,
like maybe not safety and just sharing our data with people who have no right to it.
imagine that tech billionaires might be lying
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, exactly.
That's insane.
Okay, I'm loving this new addition to the podcast. I am feeling like I've got some wind in my sails. There really are so many good things happening every week, but we're just not hearing enough about them, and we want to help change that. I know that good news definitely helps me not lose my shit. Let us know out there if you feel the same way. So let's talk about our guest this week, LaFonda. This was such a fun conversation. We talked to Bennett Rea, the creator of a video series called Cookin With Congress, where he tries recipes from U.S. presidents and politicians throughout history. This was a little different from our usual interviews, LaFonda. Did anything surprise you?
I mean, surprised in the interview? No. Surprised by the amount of jello in recipes from the past? Absolutely. There's a lot of jello being used in recipes. And so that's a little disturbing, but surprised by the amount of fun that I had with Bennett in this interview. Not at all. She's really fun.
I mean, I could go for like some cherry jello myself, but don't put anything in it.
I was going to say, do you want fish encased in the cherry jello or?
I do not.
Okay.
And I also don't need mayonnaise combined with it.
Oh, you didn't want a dollop of mayonnaise on top of your fish encased jello or ham?
I really, really need to keep those things separate. But watching Bennett combine them, like, that's fun.
It's a lot of fun to watch Bennett try these recipes. I don't know if I want to try them.
Yeah. Okay. So the surprise to me, though, was that, look, we know that he cooks these crazy recipes, but I was wanting to kind of put my finger on like what bigger role his content is playing at this moment in our country where people are so divided. It's really cool to me how he's bringing Americans together with his show, and maybe, just maybe, might end up getting a few more people involved. Hi, Bennett. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Katie and LaFonda. This is fun already.
I'm very interested in this conversation.
So ready for this.
So tell us about Cookin With Congress. What is it and what inspired you to start the series? Because I'm very curious about all of the things right now.
Cookin With Congress is my social media series. It's on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and pretty much all those places where I explore the stranger recipes given to us by politicians. I eat like presidents and first ladies and politicians for an entire day. I test out recipes like Richard Nixon's ham mousse or William Taft's lobster stew. So there's some good and some bad. And then I also have started eating like everyday Americans too, and kind of giving everyone a taste of the diet of the average American. And it really came from this cookbook that my wife's grandmother gave me. We were hanging out in her house. She was 92, I think, at the time, or something, 91. And she just popped into her little library and pulled out this South Dakota Centennial cookbook from 1989. And she said, I just think you might like this. You might find it neat. For no reason whatsoever. I don't remember the context, but I popped it open and there were these recipes all from the 80s from politicians, from like state senators, the governor of South Dakota at the time, George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan, the president and vice president, had given their recipes, and they were all insane. And so it was so funny. The names were ridiculous. There were things like Happy Ham, which was like pour 3 cans of beer over a ham and then bake it for 2 hours. And they were all from these like powerful politicians. And the juxtaposition of weird recipe, the most powerful people in our country offering up like wine jelly and diabetic cucumber salad with lemon jello just made me laugh. And I started creating the recipes for myself just for my own enjoyment. It became a blog. And then eventually in February 2023, I decided to, make it into a video series for social media. And the rest is history somehow.
I have recently been introduced, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm absolutely obsessed. And I am kind of obsessed with the idea of cherry bounce. We'll talk about that offline. There is a lot of jello involved. There is a lot of liquor involved. But tell me, what are some of the best and worst recipes that you have discovered and made on the show?
Unsurprisingly, some of the worst ones are the gelatin-based ones. We went through a phase. We really went through a phase for like 25 to 30 solid years where it was, if it was a vegetable or a fruit, it wasn't safe from being placed in Jello.
There's a lot of jello and meat combinations. It's so strange. Like,
Yeah, it goes way back to the Jello meat combinations. I did one fairly recently, which was fish a l'adobe, which is an Andrew Jackson recipe. Not a recipe from him, but something he enjoyed. I don't know if you saw this one, but it's an entire fish encased in Jello, presented as such. And it's like, to me, it's like, it's like beautiful, but horrifying. The taste was challenging, is the kindest word I can say. But we've been making that for a very long time because of preservation technique. Way, 200, 300 years ago, you put it in jelly, basically, which is, boiled hooves and other parts of the animal that give you collagen. It's an expensive, long process, but it'll preserve your meat or your fish. So it started off with like savory things because gelatin itself is kind of savory. It came from bones, which is gross. I guess if you think about it too long, right? We're like, but I had gelatin with like marshmallows. You're like, yeah, I know, and some bones. And then eventually, it wasn't until later on that we started to do like sweet jellies with wine and sugar in the 1700s. And then, of course, mid-century gave us the gnarly stuff. And that is where my least favorite recipes are from. So I did, there was this frozen cottage cheese mayonnaise jello, which is that's like a word salad that shouldn't exist. And have you ever had frozen mayonnaise before?
No.
Good.
And I like mayonnaise.
I like mayonnaise too. I just had it on a tomato sandwich yesterday. Amazing. I can do mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is all right. Mayonnaise, when it's like the main flavor component, mixed with lime jello and the little cheese curds.
I'm not even sure I knew mayonnaise froze, honestly. All new information.
Yeah. Oh, a mayonnaise sickle? You've never had a mayonnaise sickle?
I'm very upset about this.
We have so much to learn.
That was probably the worst one because I was like, it just felt like teeth on a chalkboard as I was biting into it. The texture was horrible. The flavor was just as bad. And I think about it at least once a week. Some of the best stuff has been the Gilded Age and like early 1900s. They were eaten well, the presidents at that time and the first ladies. So, I mean, I had a dish recently that was very expensive to recreate because it was a truffled lobster salad.
Oh,
Madeira and cream. And it was unbelievably rich. You only want to have like, I don't know, like a quarter's worth basically. But it was fabulous. And even making it, the whole house smelled like I was just filthy rich.
Oh, I love it.
Bennett, can we talk about, okay, I understand you found the recipe book, you started experimenting, you're blogging, it ignited a passion. Now you've got millions of people following you on this journey. But can we step back a little bit? I have read that you used to work at environmental nonprofits, that there was a moment when you actually contemplated getting involved in politics. And I'm fascinated by that because here at Red, Wine, and Blue and through this podcast, we're all about finding ways to make politics actually relatable, approachable, something that people would actually want to do. Sometimes we say we're here to take the ick out of politics. I actually feel like you're putting extra ick in, like between the jello and like the possum recipes for sure. But somehow doing it the way you're doing it, like people are really wanting to engage with this, like people from all across the ideological spectrum, from every side of the aisle. How do you think about this work in terms of engaging people in like sort of political content, but like through food? Do you find that somehow this is scratching an itch for you in terms of leading people to sort of like political education? Or is that like just so not what you're doing here? Like you're just having fun with jello? Take us behind the scenes.
I think the show for me is such a beautiful combination of like all aspects of me in some way and my like personal and career professional history. First of all, putting the ick back in politics might be a good slogan for the show. So thank you for that.
You are welcome.
You're explore it. But yeah, I went to school for politics. When I was graduating, I kind of got disillusioned by what I had learned about politics, though. I was interested in campaigns and elections. I love the storytelling aspect of campaigns and elections. And then I went through all of the, and I'm so sorry to like all of my political professors because they did it right. It all ended up fine. But at the end of it, I was very disillusioned, which is strange because it was a time when, as a country, I felt like we were pretty hopeful, even though it was like 2010, 2011, recession hit hard. Not a lot of political jobs also available in like the winter of 2010 when I graduated. But it was, I went to Barack Obama's like Democratic nomination in Denver in 2008. It was like electric and wild to see that going on. I think Palin and McCain were in Minnesota, and I was like hearing from my friends who were on a work study there in college, and they were like, it's quiet. So it was like a very exciting time. And yet still I was turned off of politics somehow because I felt like the creative side wasn't getting fulfilled.
But you don't think like spending hundreds of millions of dollars on 30-second political attack ads is like a great expression of creativity? What?
Thank you. That's so succinctly said. You just said it more clearly than I could when I was trying to explain to my professors why I was taking so many film classes my senior year. But I did. I started taking film classes. I shot a short film my like senior year of college, and I started just writing like crazy and moved out to Los Angeles from the middle of Pennsylvania to do that, really. But I was always politically engaged, politically active. I grew up with a very political household and a very politically diverse household also. My grandma, I think until maybe 2015, had a picture on our fridge that said, "Pray for our president." But it was a picture of George W. Bush still.
I think my grandmother had that same.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And it was definitely for Bush, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, so we had varying, like, and my parents and myself and my grandma, we all lived in one house. We all had very different like political views and understandings, but we all had love and understanding with each other somehow. And so I kind of grew up with that idea of connectedness through other means, even if we were like disagreeing politically. All of my grandmother's best friends were like extremely different from her politically. And so I kind of witnessed a lot of that. But to get back to the kind of journey with Cookin With Congress, I really started because I think the show has its own voice and its own perspective, right? Like there is a world in which I comb through all of the old recipes and I just find really, really tasty recipes. Like there's a million good pie recipes from the mid-century politicians, and I could do that. But that wasn't the choice that I made in making the show, right? I wanted to highlight kind of the ridiculous nature. And there are a lot of ridiculous ones. There's thousands of ridiculous ones. So the show has its own voice in that way. It's educating. I think it's giving people, it is scratching an itch politically without telling them how to feel about a certain person. And I think that I try to be very honest with how a day goes, right? Like I caught a lot of heat for, funnily enough, on both sides for like the RFK Jr. episode I did. Where I ate like him for a day. And some people were like, where's the rotten bear meat? Come on, man. Like you're platforming someone. And other people were like, hey, you're making fun of RFK Jr. because you mentioned that he's not eating rotten bear meat. And I was like, man, I can't just win here, right? But I try to take each politician on the basis of what's in front of me for their day of eating and be very honest to what that actually feels like. But outside of that, I think the political aspect of the show is to poke fun at the political class. I never want to do that with the Eating Like America series, which is where I eat like everyday folks, because I treat that very differently.
Let's talk about that. I love this, that in addition to doing, the Eating Like a Former President or Congressperson, you've started cooking like your audience does. People across the country will tell you what they eat in a day, and then you'll eat that. So there's a lot of division right now politically among Americans. Do you think this has helped your audience connect with one another? And what are you trying to do here? What's the message behind that?
Yeah, I think it's almost the opposite of the other portion of the show, which is like politicians, and you're like seeing me eat like a truffled lobster salad or 9 glasses of Madeira, and you're like, oh wow, this is bringing these massive like figures down to a human level, or making me feel like they are lizards, one way or the other, right? For the Eating Like America series, I love exploring. It's like walking into someone's house and you open up the fridge, right? Like you open up their fridge and you know something about them immediately. So I like when people are able to see themselves on the show, even if it's not literally themselves. So like, oh, I'm a grocery store manager, and like, this is kind of how I eat too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, whoa, I'm from New Orleans. That is not a New Orleans diet. I'm going to submit mine, so you get some better representation here, right? But I think that I keep it to age and occupation and the congressional district that they're from, so one of the 435. But I don't add any other identifying factors. And it's so interesting to see what people assume or what people connect on. And when you break it down, I think like I could be talking about anyone. I don't talk about their like a political affiliation. It could be any race, any ethnicity. They could be trans, they could be gay, they could be a woman, they could be a man. None of that is brought into the show, and people could connect on that other basis. I think it's really important at this time because there's a ton of demonization that happens automatically, especially online. You know what it's like out there.
It makes it fun, I think, because I think I saw one where you were eating like churches and your daughter's pescatarian or something. And she was like, I'm pescatarian except for churches now because and I was like, yes.
It was our first churches in the house. That was our first purposeful taste of meat. She's been like, my wife's pescatarian, so we were like, yeah, sure, let's get like raise her pescatarian until she's ready to make a choice. And she smelled that church's chicken and was like, I think it's time, Dad. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah. As someone from Texas, I was like, that makes sense. I mean, yeah,
it's amazing. I was also very, very happy with church's chicken.
I think there's something very of the moment that you're tapping into here, though. Like, we are in such a populist moment where I think Americans are feeling really fed up with the political class, big P national politics, and recognizing the importance of connecting with each other to tap into our own shared power. Like, no politician is coming to save us. And like, these billionaire backed campaigns, like that's not, how can that possibly be in touch with who we are and what's in our fridge, And so I feel like you're pointing out those commonalities that we all have, and maybe in that side door, backdoor way, promoting this message that there's so much more that we agree on and are connected by. And my hope is someone who wants to see, better leadership that can better represent what it is that we all have in common and those values. Like, maybe people sort of find their way towards engaging in our like electoral system. Like, maybe they vote a little bit with a little bit more passion and bring more people to the table, or have conversations around the table as they are maybe experimenting with some of the insane meals that you have shown them. I don't know. Am I stretching it too far here, Bennett? Like, I feel like there's a way in. Like, you have a powerful message here, and I want them to, whether it's finding, Red Wine and Blue or any other like community out there, like find your people and find your power.
I think the community aspect, like I kind of take a very humanistic approach to all this stuff that I make anyway, which is person to person and building community online as well. And I like recognize that like I probably get a lot less fire online because of the content, because like I am who I am, right? Like to be a woman on the internet is significantly more difficult than being like a guy on the internet. But I found even with people who are, and of course there's some people who are mean or nasty or whatever to me and to other folks in the comment sections, but largely I've found way more people getting fired up about like, are Fig Newtons a cookie or not? And having the heated arguments about whether angel hair pasta is like good or evil. And it's like,
I feel like I could argue both sides.
Me too. It's a choking hazard, but also like I've made some pretty good angel hair pasta in the recent past, right? But I think like there is that commonality in that like that communal approach where like, yeah, you're not going to agree on everything with everyone around you too, but we're all here and we're all living together. Like the same way that I was like, you know what? Like me and my grandma are not going to agree on everything. She's like pretty sure that gravity isn't real. And that's like a non-starter for me, scientifically, but we're living in the same house and we're going to have to make this work. And so I think that that backdoor approach to me is that I take every person seriously, even when I may not take their belief seriously. The person behind the belief, I think, is always worth at least like listening to and engaging with to a certain degree if you have the privilege of like being a safe in that conversation. And so I have in the past like had those like one-on-one conversations, which is difficult at times, but like I think that combined with the feeling people get from the show hopefully brings people together and also just makes people feel like the world is less divided than it is, because I don't think it is quite as black and white and divided that way.
I mean, that's a revolutionary idea right now. If we're starting from there, you've already made such an enormous difference, right? Because it's only by us pointing at each other as the cause of all the problems and sources of blame rather than, you know, the people actually who have all the wealth and power in this country, like they're winning, right? They're dividing us and we're never going to make any progress. So it might feel like a small thing, y'all, but I think that's actually a really big thing.
History being the thing that people love right now on the internet is a thing, right? And our audience loves Heather Cox Richardson. We just talked to Amanda's Mom Takes a couple weeks ago. Why, for you, is it so important to preserve historical recipes and the connection to history? And do you see the connections between remembering our history and talking to people about history and building a better future?
Yeah, I think preserving historical recipes, it goes back very, very far. And you can learn so much from the time period, socially, culturally, beyond, like, obviously there's the humorous element of me making a cottage cheese mayonnaise jello salad. And the reality is that those jello salads in the mid-century were considered like a lower socioeconomic status way of showing higher status. Like, oh, we could afford jello now. That used to be very expensive to make, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Like, you had to boil hooves for 24 hours. And then they'd put it in a box mix. You know what was really nice for all those at the time, like the housewives? Toss whatever you want in a jello salad, and that saves you a lot of time because you're in charge of the entire domestic labor of your household. I was talking to someone, years ago from DC Kitchen. I think it was Robert from DC Kitchen. And he said the greatest invention for housewives of the 20th century was frozen food. And yet now it's sort of, it went through a period of being kind of demonized or looked down on. But like frozen food allowed so much labor to be freed up for women in the mid-century. And so connecting that to the gelatin, you learned so much about these time periods. If we just didn't look at these recipes and you didn't look at like why was everything in gelatin? Why were we drinking so much beer, in the late 1700s? You could just be like, oh, this is silly and crazy. Wasn't it wild back then? It's like, no, there's actually a story behind it and a history behind it and a reason. Like the reason we were drinking beer is because we had no regulations and ways to clean water. So how do you make progress without also looking back at history?
So I was raised Christian in the South. My husband is Jewish. So we are now an interfaith family. And so some of our friends just thought it was really funny, like his Jewish friends in particular, or maybe it was my Jewish friends, to give me the WASP cookbook. It is a celebration of mayonnaise. At the time, I wasn't even really much of a fan of mayonnaise. Now I actually do enjoy mayonnaise, I would say, on an almost daily basis. But do you know this cookbook? And do you have any advice for me to truly appreciate an adventure into it?
I don't know that cookbook. I need to get a copy of it. My biggest suggestion is don't you dare add a single uncalled for spice in any dish. You put that paprika away.
Nope. I was going to say, I knew it was going to have a lot of mayonnaise and no paprika.
No. Black pepper. You can keep the black pepper nearby, but I wouldn't even crack any onto any recipe there. The only seasoning you need is pure, thick, white mayonnaise.
I love what you're doing because it is fun. It's funny. You're making the political world more accessible and doing it in a way that brings people together. And at the end of the day, the people in power right now are just trying to divide us. You are a good American. You are bringing us all together around ridiculous food, and you are doing it courageously by following those recipes to a T and not even adding paprika. This is a courageous American man, everyone.
Thank you. That's a first. That's a first, being called a courageous American man. Wow.
I love it so much. I'm obsessed.
Thank you.
He's putting the ick back in politics, you guys.
Putting it back in politics. There we go.
Make a change, make a change, make a change, make a change. Oh yes, we came to make a change. RWB, we came to make a change.
Tired of sugar-coated news and corporate spin? Check out The Nicole Sandler Show. Speaking truth to power with the irreverence it deserves. Smart, fearless, and just the right amount of snark. Nicole breaks down the headlines, exposes the hypocrisy, and talks with the people working for real change. Weekdays at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific on Progressive Voices, NicoleSandler.com, Substack, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't just get the news, get the truth.
History is messy. It's weird, wild, and anything but boring. Rainy Day Rabbit Holes is a history podcast about unhinged stories that make you stop and ask, wait, is this real life?
From crazy disasters and tasty scandals to enlightening and surprising heartwarming tales, we explore the moments where people behave badly and sometimes beautifully.
We've got naughty politicians, cultural chaos, and a deep love for the Pacific Northwest, including Bigfoot.
It's thoughtful, irreverent, occasionally serious, and always entertaining.
Let's fall down the rabbit hole.
MSW Media.